Hi everyone. Hope everyone's having a wonderful build up to the holidays with all the kids and everything. If you hear kids in the background, my neighbors have amazing children. I love hearing their laughter. It's incredible and infectious too. Um, to start this week off, of course, Parliament is not sitting anymore, and even for next year, it's only going to be sitting for 10 days. So we're going to talk about a few things like the election being called and a few other things. How Scott Morrison can't control his party and much, much more. But just to be sure about where you sit today, take a seat, get a cup of tea, and hopefully you'll enjoy the content. First up, here we go, here we go, here we go. Oh, now, this is why my teenagers say I touch things. Ah, screen. Okay. First up, I just want to see if you can see what I'm seeing. Just give me a second. Yeah. Yeah, it's still not. The Facebook Live interface is not doing what I need it to do. So maybe if I cheat and do it that way. Nope. Okay, we're gonna have to, when I get a new setup after Christmas, hopefully it'll change how this interface is working. Okay, we are talking polls. I don't know how much you guys have had the opportunity to see it, but ALP leads the LNP. It is 56.5 for the ALP and 43.5 for the LMP. But just to make things really, really clear, um, the voting intention 36 for ALP, 34.5 for the LMP, the Greens 12.5, and the Independents 17. Roy Morgan consumer confidence is at 107.5, unemployment monthly at 9.2%. Okay. So this is really going to be part of the rhetoric that you're going to hear about Scott Morrison being this massive underdog and how he is going to struggle to win and all that kind of thing. Look, let's be absolutely clear. Scott Morrison isn't going to struggle to win if people don't understand the reason why they're voting. They're voting to get rid of the healthy welfare card if they vote Labor. They're voting for a climate policy if they vote Labor. They are just one sec. Um, they are voting for the best parts of what we need right now. Better climate policy, housing, social justice, all that kind of thing. But just to make it abundantly clear about why I'm discussing it like that, um, I wonder if it'll let me do it again. And if I do it this way, just one second. I just want to see if this kicks in because I'm testing it. Nah, it's still not going to let me. Damn it. My plan was so foolproof that it failed again. Damn you, rascally technology. Um, So after Christmas, I'm going to have a totally different setup and hopefully This will be in a few weeks. I don't know. I've got to manage to work it all out. Readjust everything. So, in saying that, uh, I don't think people have quite gotten a grasp of where we are at. For instance, Labor isn't just winning in the polls because they're sick of the LNP. They're losing in the polls because the LNP doesn't have policy. They're not even attempting to have policy. But what do I mean when I say that? They're not attempting to have an honest discussion about what um, what policies they want to take to the election. They stole the electric car policy. That's true. They did all of those things. They've branched into talk about stuff that they want to do. They've got their bigot bill, which isn't popular even amongst their own. But by and large, what policy have you heard the LNP really have? They have this thing about opening up the country, but they really don't know how to do it. They're encouraging people to get booster shots, but don't really do a lot to encourage that kind of thing. Scott Morrison wants to stay on the side of the anti-vaxxer groups and the whole crazy lot that he's got up behind him. You know, he wants to keep that in a little weird system that he's got going. I I think when you sit on the fence on so many issues, it becomes an issue. And I don't think Scott Morrison has it in him to have this honest, real moment of being a people's prime minister. Where when you look at Albo, he definitely has, like, he talks about daycare, he talks about employment, he talks about, increasing apprenticeships. I mean, this is all stuff we need yesterday. Um, when you talk about jobs and infrastructure, particularly, this is something that I think that all of us are going to be negatively affected by it. But what do I? Oh, these earphones. But what do I mean when I say that? I mean, truly, there is so much more to the policy outlook of Scott Morrison that he's missing. He is missing real talk on real policy. Um, we should have a leader that leads and has something for everyone. I've heard him talk about his religious beliefs. That's really about it. I've heard him talk about little like party infraction sort of stuff that they disagree on. I've heard him expand the healthy welfare card, which isn't popular either. I mean, drop a comment below if you can tell me a policy that he actually has that works. I'm going to check these headphones one more time because I don't know if my mic is actually picking up well. So this will be a huge moment for the country, you know, in how we discuss what's happening in our political space. This is an election for not just, the people that are in politics, but for the kids and the grandkids and everyone who is going to be negatively affected in the coming weeks. But if you think I'm being hyperbolic about that, imagine a government further down the line without a climate policy, or one that didn't deal in social justice, or a government that didn't really do anything about building up jobs and kept all of these big perks for big business and ran out a lot of small businesses. These are things that Labor promises to tackle, but I come with receipts. Now, this is where it sucks because I have been wanting to share my screen with you guys and it hasn't let me. So, There was talk that Gladys Berejiklian could have um, been part of the party, like being part of the federal coalition, which, you know, to me, that kind of talk isn't helpful. When I'm talking about she's still underneath the gaze of ICAC and a few other things, I think that she's in real deep trouble. And I think that they knew it, and the paper needed a story to distract from all the lies that Scott Morrison had told. So here we are. As Berejiklian liberates herself from the Republic of Rohingya, which is a seat that she wanted. This is from what article am I reading from? SMH, Sydney Morning Herald. Major parties may face an even crosser bench. Freedom, cried Tony Abbott, toting a new dog whistle in the ears of the electorate that ejected him so exuberantly in 2019. She has an instinct for freedom, and was his recommendation for Gladys Berejiklian. Parachute drop into the former seat of Rohingya. Yeah, they typically do this. They get someone that's, I don't know, like guaranteed to win it. It's not a great form, but this is how the LNP functions. Parachute people into seats, whether they're really good at their job or whatever. Gladys Berejiklian was doomed from the outset. All she wanted to do was follow Scott Morrison and hopefully avoid any of the big messes. But the big boys got her into big trouble, and because she didn't have her own thoughts and feelings about stuff. Hence why her little lover boy may be finding himself in a bit of trouble too. Look, here's the thing. She put herself into this mess. It isn't anything anyone did to her. She's not a victim of anything. She is a making of her own little monster. Okay. So even if she wants to cry freedom, 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 freedom from what? Freedom from the idea that a transmissible and deadly virus should just be rampant. She wasn't really interested in doing what needed to be done, and she allowed it to go wild, which is why this was never a real thing. It was never a real thing. The big boys were never ever going to give her anything. They just wanted something to pump up their sales for a little while in the news cycle. And it was repugnant to its core because you could see how disingenuous they were about the whole situation. But don't take my word for it, take theirs. Look at how quick they pulled her when they could see that it wasn't going to go well. I mean, that's where we are. But I digress. Scott Morrison has ultimately lost control of his party. You've got David Sharma saying that he doesn't think George Christensen is an active part of his party. You've got Craig Kelly running around like a crazy nut conspiracy theorist now underneath the Palmer United Party. And you've got the parts of his party that are rejecting his bigot bill. And he's at the helm of a very, very agitated party. They don't really have a sense of direction. Okay. So this is from the Saturday paper. This is a story about a powerful and factionalism in the next election. It begins with a man whose name is hardly well known or even amongst political observers. But his story serves as a case study of how Scott Morrison's autocratic efforts of a factional control in his home state could lead him to government defeat in next year's election. So it's worth telling as a small example of a much, much bigger problem. Do I have the thing on or not? Because I know that YouTube people like to see what I'm doing. Okay. I know that it works on YouTube because I can see it pop up. Okay. The days of Bob Dwyer called himself an unemployed citizen. Until recently, however, he was the mayor of Sydney's second city, Parramatta, one of 6 Liberal councillors. After last weekend's local government elections, there are none. Whoa. Whoa. One of 6 Liberal councillors. After this weekend's local government, there are none. You know what? I want to give credit to Friendly Geordies for that. Oh my God. If you've seen his videos, they were awesomeness. I don't know if I shared them up on the group or not, but I remember saying, go and check out Friendly Geordies. He has it all. Trust me when I tell you. He is the awesomeness. So they got no seats out of 6. We've gotten from technically being in some sort of control to being nothing, he says. He attributes the wipeout to factional politics. At the heart is Scott Morrison's New South Wales Consular Alex Hawke. Oh. Before we get to the detail of Dwyer's story, through a little about Hawke. Since 2007, Hawke has been the member for the electorate of Mitchell as part of the northwestern Bible Belt. Wow. It should have been like one and done for Scott Morrison of Sydney. He's currently a member of the Morrison Cabinet and a Minister for Immigration and Citizenship and Migrant Services and Multicultural Affairs. My dude has a lot on his plate. Like Morrison, he's one of the Pentecostal faith because, of course, you know, that's how they do these things. More importantly, for this story, he's a leader of the Morrison faction in New South Wales. The centre-right is Morrison's appointed delegate at the party's state executive. No, this is no centre thing. That's deeply inappropriate, and I do not want to put out there like Scott Morrison is centre in any way. He's an extremist, and he's going to destroy everything. There's no other way to put it. He is this sort of person that will ultimately not just bring down his own party, but himself in the process, and no photo op can save what he's done. Ultimately, the country is poorer and less accepting of other people in that process. Okay. Sorry. The other 2 larger factions are the right, sometimes called the hard right, which is where I would think Scott Morrison is. The faction of the Premier Dominic Perrott and the moderate left faction. There is no moderate left faction. I really take issue with this. If there's any part of the Liberal Party that's left, where is it and where is its policy? A Minister for Energy and Environment, Matt Kean. Hawke is rivaled by both. As one senior right faction member says, Hawke has used his time as Morrison's representative on the state executive is an endeavour to advance a factional position of the detriment of both Conservatives and the moderates. In other words, they want to be fence sitters and they don't really want to say anything of substance. What they want to do is they want to say, I want a little bit from this side, I want a little bit from that side, and let's turn it into a glob of a voting pool, which is a very, very bad idea. Why? Because it makes you look like you stand for nothing. And when you stand for nothing, nothing matters. Which means when you're trying to run an election, nothing literally matters. It's the most repugnant way of saying I have no morals at all. I will kiss your boots and lick them if you like, just so you vote for me. It's there is no two sides of some things. Like you can't be two sided about how this country opens. You cannot be two sided about how you treat the homeless. You can't be two sided about education. You can't be two sided on a climate issue. There are certain things that you need to have that fundamentally speaks to each and every human being. That we, if you stand for nothing, you have nothing. If you are saying nothing, you aren't worth the ballot, a name on the ballot. And I really, really want to stress that this is like not a thing that no political party should be dipping their toes into. They shouldn't want to be the center of anything. They should want to have a stance on certain things that affect you, me, and everyone else. I do not want the interpretation put out there that it is okay to sit on the fence on certain things. There are certain things that need to be said. Like, you don't want an immigrant treated like crap. That is a policy you need to go to an election with. You don't want a prime minister having a boat in the background saying that they stopped people in need from coming here. That's inhumane and that's cruel. There is no good reason for that particular policy other than dog whistling to the incredibly racist people. And if that is an election winner, that's a real, real bad take of this country. And I refuse to think that we are bad. Because I inherently believe that this country believes in uh, people all across the world that do need our help. We can give it. And why do I believe that? Because what else have we got? I mean, that's what being an Aussie is. It's helping out each other. It's building up each other to be the better people. Um, as a senior right faction member says, he used all his time as Morrison's representative on the state executive in an endeavour to advance his factional position to the detriment of both conservatives and moderates. To the point now that conservatives and moderates are in alliance against Hawke. And now that means against Morrison because they both stand for nothing. There is nothing that I can look at these people and then go, no, no, no. But they got this policy or that policy. They really don't have one. And I think that if we're going to have an honest discussion about where this party is, it's not here. And why do I say that? Because overwhelmingly, if it was here, we wouldn't be even having this debate about Scott Morrison slipping in the polls. The anti-Hawke feeling goes beyond the institutional opposition. It is personal. Like his prime ministerial mentor, Hawke is hard-changing and abrasive. While the left and right have recent years come to sometimes uneasy agreement in sharing the spoils of power, Hawke has a winner-takes-all approach. It comes back to bite him and his boss and the party. The Parramatta story is illustrative. It began, says Dwyer, with a structural problem that impeded efforts to select candidates for local council elections. For the Liberal Party to be able to pre-select people, he says that they have what they call local government conference, an LGC, at a state level. They are SECs, state electoral conferences, and at the federal level, FECs. What are they in a gathering of delegates from all branches of the region? Until recently, Dwyer says Hawke controlled the numbers of the LGCs in Parramatta. Therefore, he controlled the selection of candidates. In other words, they chose people that were wrong. Hawke doesn't want plebiscites. Morrison doesn't want plebiscites. You know why? Why would you want democracy to break out? And I mean, that's a super duper telling tale, isn't it? They don't want you to have a voice, they want to take that voice. And this is quite typical of the party that claims that they're all about freedoms and being able to say what you want and peacefully protest. They say all that stuff, but until it comes the moment that you actually do it, like um, when we were holding climate change rallies, they were like, no, those kids should be in school, or or they would say things like, oh, you're all just people that don't want to work and all this kind of stuff. The moment you express something real, they become really, really upset with you. The issue was at local government conference in Parramatta fell into what, for what of a better word, disrepair. So they wrote it to the state executive, and when we needed an extraordinary meeting of all delegates so we can re-establish the LGC in Parramatta. Now, eventually, says Dwyer, the state executive made a curious decision. They said it's not too hard, it's just the bringing of the party into disrepute. We're not going to pre select anybody. Oh, geez. The executive instructed potential candidates not to run as independents. See, that's the scam. This is what I've been talking about, this scam for a while. The LNP running as independents and then saying, no, we have no affiliation with the Liberal Party. But then the independent person gives them their total preferences and votes. Just going to check the comment section if anyone needs anything. Not as yet. The executive instructed potential candidate. Anyway, she won effectively. Hold on. The executive instructed potential candidates not to run as independents, but Dwyer, who had already nominated as number 2 on the ticket with Georgina Vladrick, decided to run anyway. Anyway, she won effectively on Parramatta Council. There is now an unendorsed Liberal Conservative person. That's it. The rest are Labor, Greens, and Independents. But are they independent? Dwyer missed out, but he pleased to see a woman at last on the council. As far as he's concerned, the whole disaster was simply a get square by left and right against the Morrison Hawke faction. But others argue it was much more than that. Parramatta Council was just a cesspool for developers, says a senior moderate. Friendly Geordies discussed that very thing, how they were making high-rise buildings and not having enough room to even bury the dead. I will direct you to Friendly Geordies because he does this in-depth look at how it's working. And it's not only the local government area seen as such. 4 other Sydney councils also went to last week's elections without endorsed Liberal candidates, although some ran as independents. Again, we keep seeing this pop up, that when the Liberal Party becomes unpopular, they run as an independent and then hand the Liberal Party all their votes anyway, which is why I heavily warn against independent votes, because it's essentially just a vote for the LNP. These councils that the executive thought had corruption risks, so rather than endorse candidates, we just didn't run, says the moderate source. The left and the right came together to squeeze out the local government areas to stop Alex Hawke candidates running. There is no suggestion that Hawke or Dwyer is corrupt, but, says the source, but there's a cabal of sorts in the Liberal Party. Colourful characters are getting to council and look after developers. It's just horrible. No. That's exactly what it is. It is corrupt. Allegedly the story goes like this. And I have to say allegedly because being sued is not funny, asked friendly Geordies, even though he won. So, what does that mean? It means basically they know that the property developers in Parramatta were just insanely like they were that they weren't mitigating the difference between being a counsellor and being a property developer. In some cases, they literally merged as one. So picture it like that. They just had this one thing of council basically being a big prop up for property developers. So much so that they were selling parcels of land for a lot cheaper than what they ever should have. And the person on the board of that council would approve it in a very, very quick time. Now, if that's not corrupt, allegedly, I would like to know what is. I mean, that's the thing. These inside sources say a lot without saying, directly that this was dodgy. But I can guarantee you this was dodgy. Up and down, black or white, this was dodgy. Whatever the reason for the executive's decision, concern about corruption and factional body, the the extraordinary fact remains that the majority of party was prepared to sacrifice elections to a noble minority, which is also the Prime Minister's New South Wales support base. Let me put it to you like this. ICAC exists. They've already got Gladys in a bag, and her little sidekick. Look, even if we take this, I don't know, approach of not looking at all of the bigger picture of this, let's look at it from a smaller micro level. What just happened is they lost something so they could clean up the image of the party. Well, they're so-called cleaning up. Trust me, they're still going to run sexist, horrible candidates. That's all they have. Even if they say that they're part of the left faction or the right faction, that's all made up. Really what they are is a sexist, horrible, non-environmental party that doesn't believe in actual substance. It's just an arm of corporate. And if you think I'm kidding, let's just talk about the corporate arm of how they did that. It's awful. They've now sold off land for this. If you watch the Friendly Geordies video, for essentially the dead, and they're not sure if there'll ever be enough room to even bury your loved ones. So, yeah, they're definitely corrupt. There's no doubt in my mind. Okay, where was I? And this has a major ramifications for the upcoming federal election, which will all be about New South Wales. Can I correct that? Can I really say that I think that it lies here in Queensland? And I think it lies in WA. Why do I think that? Because have a look at the type of crazies that Queensland has. It has everything from Katter to Pauline Hanson to Clive Palmer. I mean, who votes for that? This isn't like some sort of weird moment where you happen to stumble across Clive Palmer as a vote and Bob Katter and Pauline Hanson. These are like cesspool voting pools, it's everything horrible that you can vote for in one state. So when I tell you that the eyes are on Queensland and not necessarily New South Wales, that's what I mean. I definitely think that Queensland did let us down a little bit more than what I would have hoped last election. This one, let's bring it home. Let's make sure that everyone votes one Labor. Do not get confused about why I'm saying that, because the LNP really will push the healthy welfare card onto you. They have no climate policy. And their bigot bill really will permeate itself further into the party. But that's not just on a federal level. Think of it on a state to state level. You're saying basically we would rather be hard right. Now, you don't have to agree with Labor's policies as a whole. I agree with all of them, but not everyone is going to. But do you want, honestly, that healthy welfare card to be rolled out on a whole? I personally don't. I personally think people deserve dignity in what's happening, and particularly if they roll it out to old age pensioners. Last election, they told you about death taxes and a whole other scare campaign that never, ever existed. They fabricated numbers of so called higher taxes. They invented that the electronic cars would ruin your weekends. It was one lie after another lie after another lie. And then eventually they spoke about doing the very things that they claim Labor to be doing. Like, for instance, you pay more in taxes now. They really did try to get a death tax. They really did try to get into place now this whole idea of electric vehicles. So let's be real. Let's spend a couple of minutes understanding that every little lie that they told, they were telling on themselves. For every little scare campaign they thought that they had in a bag, they were telling on themselves. They're like, whenever someone says something, there's this leakage of a lie. And it's really what they plan to do. So every time you hear them say, Labor plans to do that, remember, it's basically them telling on themselves and saying, no, we really plan to higher your taxes. We really plan to come out with something ridiculous. It's basically them dobbing on themselves. They're a culture war sort of party too. They're of no substance to you. But let's make sure that I'm clear on what that means. Not only are they not of substance, what I would like, because I'm on the share screen thing, I would like for someone to let me know what they really, really think that. Hello. I would like for someone to really, really let me know what policies the LNP have that are going to make anyone better, even making themselves better. They don't really even have anything to make themselves better. And I love this comment. This is amazing. They did have real estate agents. They really did. They were posing as like real estate agents and selling off land in this whole crazy scheme. And that's real. Don't forget, these scams exist and they're really, really good at doing it. Yeah, I'm of the belief too that they don't really have a policy that's going to help you. But I mean, this is something that you're going to have to take to the ballot box. Don't take my word for it. Listen to what they're saying. I want you to actually take time to go, yeah, okay, that makes sense. Particularly when you hear them say things like their scare campaigns, I want you to really, really listen to what they're leaking out of their stupid mouth holes. Because they're dobbing on themselves. Essentially, this is what they're really, really good at. Okay. So the only pathway to winning, and it's very narrow to gain ground in New South Wales, says one Liberal Party numbers man. And by gaining ground, I don't just mean picking up 1 or 2 seats, I mean probably 5. They're talking federally because now they can see things are bad. He foresees a train wreck in Western Australia at the state level. The party was able to be wiped out in March in the state election. It will possibly lose as many as 3 seats in a federal poll. Victoria remains a massive challenge. Now, if you remember how big that they would like trying to attack Dan Andrews and say, he's this big, bad, evil beast, and you know, you have to hate him no matter what. And there happened to be this thing where they would like get all hot and bothered about whatever Dan Andrews did, even though the federal government had very similar policies to do with COVID. He stuck to it. The Prime Minister just wanted to go into the Maccas and relieve himself again. That's what it seemed like to me. I don't know what you guys were watching, but it was like a way of attacking Dan Andrews, but also a way of garnering that support from that faction of anti-vaccine people. Because I'm not going to lie to you, this is taking a bit of the left faction. The left. This has essentially grabbed a bit of people to say that they vote left. Why? I don't know. I don't know anyone that would want to be anti-science, but this is basically what I'm looking at. But don't take my word for it. Take theirs. Have a look at what they're doing and listen to the language that they're using. And it's going to be shown very much so where we are at when this federal election comes into the cycle. Listen to the scare stuff because they're going to do it. Everything that they say that everyone else is going to do is really their secret plot. They're like the evil guy on any cartoon movie. If you've ever sat down with your kids and watched like the evil guy explain his evil plot before he does it, that's what the LNP are doing. I kid you not. It's like dobbing on yourself. If you've got kids, you've heard this before. I know I have many times. You know, you hear the evil guy going, it won't matter, you'll be dead. So I'm going to tell you my evil plot. It's so hilariously bad. It is that bad. But, I mean, again, this is how they've done this. This is how they've run this sort of talk. And it's kind of scary because we're at a point where people can't see it. I have tried to show many, many times, hey, this is like a real thing that they're really doing. And everyone's like, no, you're crazy. Why would they tell on themselves? Because they're idiots. They don't have the nature to think about what's going to happen a week after they win. They were trying to set it up so they thought that they weren't going to win the last election. So they kind of told on themselves and went, no, we're going to have to up taxes if we win. We're going to have to talk about death taxes. We're probably going to have to talk about a few things. But why did they do that? Because they knew that they wrecked the economy. No conservative ever has done well on the economy front. They reckon that Victoria remains a massive challenge, and it's a possibility to leave a seat or two in South Australia and Tasmania. A couple of seats in Queensland. No, hold on. Are also looking shaky. We'll also lose a seat or two in South Australia and Tasmania. So the numbers man lists the most prospective seats. Parramatta is winnable if we're capable of running credible campaign there. There is a good community-based candidate. Let's look into that one because when they say something like that, it's kind of a bit scary. Macquarie is held up by Labor by 300 votes, which isn't much at all. Even Labor would concede Andrew Constance would be a favourite to win. Gilmore, Greenaway, Patterson, Hunter, and Dobell are other seats the party will be looking at. And of course, there's Rawinga. He says it, referring to the one blue ribbon Liberal seat now held by independent Zali Steggall. But remember, Zali isn't really an independent. She ran as one, but she's pretty conservative. Earlier this week, Morrison and others, including John Howard, were enthusiastically talking up the prospect of former moderate faction member Gladys Berejiklian. Yeah, no mention of ICAC or anything, or even for the Saturday paper, that's pretty poor that they didn't put that in there. Party sources told the Saturday paper she's all but certain not to do so. Morrison apparently got the same message, and by Wednesday he was talking it down again. So, in other words, it was like a story cycle thing that they do. Without Berejiklian, the chances of the Liberals retaking Rawinga were dramatically recede. It's also somewhat embarrassing for a leader to openly court a candidate only to be snubbed. Morrison has other bigger problems, though. One is that the state branch has moved to a plebiscite model of pre-selection, giving branch members power over the choice of candidates. See, you can't win them all, Scott Morrison. You can't just sort of cheat and then get sued. That's really what he did. It was pretty awful. The change long sought by the country's party, the change long sought by the party's right and husbanded through Tony Abbott theoretically diminishes the power of factional chiefs to dictate outcomes. Now, look, I think that we are at a point with the Liberal Party when they had a whole heap of people that dropped off like flies before last election. But here's the difference. You can literally see the panic in their eyes. The change sought by the in reality, it makes sitting members more at risk of a challenge, and it presents a bigger threat to smaller factions, which means the Morrison Hawke are centre right. Okay. Indeed, according to a source in both moderate and right factions, Hawke can no longer be short even of the numbers by his own seat, as well as the numbers of others, including Farah, held by Environment Minister Susan Ley. Geez, you don't hear much from her anymore. I don't know about you guys, but I don't hear from her, do you? It's going to be something that we're going to have to keep an eye on. These LNP people pop in and out as they choose, and you don't really see him doing much. Look at George Christensen. He's more of a member for Manila than what he is his own seat. Unless there is a plebiscite in Mitchell, it is impossible to know if there's an accurate assessment. What is clear, Hawke and Morrison are concerned about what might happen in a range of seats if the party rank and file starts making decisions. See, Scott Morrison can't win honestly. That's why even in his very first pre-selection, he cheated. Hawke doesn't want plebiscites. Morrison doesn't want plebiscites. You know why? Why would you want democracy breaking out? The same message comes from the party's left. The party doesn't have a left. And the evidence of repeated attempts by Hawke to delay the process of candidate selection supports of that concentration. The problems as senior moderates is that the plebiscites can take place. Party head office must undertake a process of review of those who wish to run for pre-selection, essentially a vetting process to ensure potential candidates are eligible. And the Prime Minister's representative or executive is none other than Alex Hawke. And Hawke's strategy has been to delay the pre-selection so they can come and say, well, we can't do that process. We're going to have to intervene. In other words, cheat. These days that would allow Morrison and Hawke to impose candidates regardless of their local branches want. Yeah, in other words, they're going to put people there that weren't really chosen by the people. But, says one source, the only reason the Prime Minister would need to intervene is because his hand-picked representatives has stymied the entire process. All of this has caused ructions at the highest levels of the party. Dom Perriott has told Morrison that under no circumstances would he support a federal intervention in the New South Wales division of the party. The state's division has gone so far to threaten legal action if he tries. Instead, he is expected Hawke and Morrison will be offered a deal. The right and the left will agree to the endorsement of sitting members Paul Fletcher in Bradfield, Morrison in Cook, the seat that he cheated, Susan Lee in Farah, and Angus Taylor in Hume. Alex Hawke in Mitchell, Trent Zimmerman in North Sydney, and Fiona Martin in Reid. In return, the expectation is that the rank and file pre-selections will go ahead in a raft of other seats, including Bennelong, Warringah, Gilmore, Parramatta, and Dobell. Maybe the plebiscites will endorse a captain's pick of candidates that the centre-right hoped will parachute in it, such as the Pentecostal Premier preacher Gemma Gleeson. What? In Dobell, they want a Pentecostal preacher? Oh my God. Maybe they won't. Hawke and Morrison will just have to live with it. The hope is that all the pre-selections sewn up by early February, while the timetable would still allow for the possibility of a March election. Oh, they want to carry this out till March, guys. That's plenty of drinks at a pub between a lot of polling. That makes me a little bit concerned. It is perhaps another sign that the election could be held off until the last possible moment. One source fiercely told predicts May 21. But no one really knows, or maybe not even Morrison himself. The government's problems are further exacerbated by growing number of well-funded, well-credentialed independent candidates running mostly against moderates, and the seats have previously been considered heartland. The signs of fracturing are numerous to sight. In just one past week, Fiona Martin clings to Reid by just 3% and faces not only a well-connected Labor opponent, Sally Situ, but also the lawyer supports Administrator Natalie Benini, has been a lucky candidate for pre-selection, but quit the party last week, publicly complaining about sexism in candidates in the process. Let me go back to that part. Okay. In short, New South Wales is not yet a disaster for the government, but remains very messy. Morrison and Hawke are fast discovering the limits of power to control events. Bob Dwyer, having lived through the shambles of last week's council election, sees them also. He worries that the same warfare played out badly in Parramatta will play badly in a federal poll. I think it's just the way New South Wales seems to operate somehow, unfortunately. These days he's watching from the outside. He says he has no further aspiration to elected office. He's now out there jumping ship and looking for a new life, not endlessly pushed around by the factions. Let's face it, they don't really have a faction. They've got a crazy side 1 and crazy side 2. There's not really a faction. And I mean, they make that obvious in every statement that they basically make. Oh, I touch things. Don't tell the kids. They will yell at me. Okay, now for the fun side, for the fun half. So this woman, Catherine Thornton, possibly saved Australia from having Christian Porter as Prime Minister. This is a story I know you're going to just love. Okay. The fun half of the hour. Where are we up for time? Just while I'm in like crazy pants mode. Yeah. Let's just do that. And what up? Okay. Without a woman named Catherine Thornton taking a stand and preparing to go to battle to seek justice for an alleged rape, Australia might have ended up at some stage with a former Attorney General Christian Porter as Prime Minister. This article is from Kangaroo Court. And anyone who has looked at Mr. Porter's career closely knows that Australia dodged a bullet, if not a missile, on the basis that Australia should thank Catherine Thornton. But we all get from the media is silence and refusal to mention her name. On the other, no, there's a reason for that. Let me just address that very issue. The very second that someone mentioned it from the ABC, he was suing. Just keep that part in mind as they're having this fever dream of what you can and cannot say. On the other hand, there are women like Grace Tame and Brittany Higgins who are congratulated in taking a stand for their work, shining a light in dark places, such as the message on Twitter below. Okay, amazing to hear that Tame Punk and Brittany Higgins speak together. Frank Kelly 08 this morning on Frank Kelly's that she has a radio thing going, I think, Frank Kelly. I'm not trying to take anything away from what Grace Tame or Brittany Higgins have achieved, which I think it is kind of playing down how much Grace Tame and Brittany Higgins have done. But at no point the fact that there are many women out there who still don't get the credit they should have for the effort they put in to shine a light on similar issues. And Kathleen Thornton is one of those women. Now, how Kathleen Thornton didn't get that notoriety is because Christian Porter was like, no, we're just going to sue. And that's how hyperbolic the Liberal Party has become. Can't fix a problem, you can sue for it. And that is one of the reasons that the old media won't name Catherine. Another reason is that Christian Porter and his legal team claim that Catherine Thornton's family have asked for her not to be named, which benefits Porter's attempt to minimize public interest. And media reports it, but there's still no evidence to support that claim. We do have Catherine Thornton's former boyfriend saying in court that he would prefer to use her full name. I have published this website since 2011. I've spoken and written on many articles about her survivors. And I know when they make a decision to go public with their allegations against a high-profile person, that one thing empowers them the most is having their own name and face in the media. That's because it gives them allegations credibility. I wonder if I can sort of do this thingy and I can... Nope, that's still... When I get the new setup, I swear to God, you're going to see everything I'm seeing. I know you can on YouTube, but my God, Facebook, catch up. I'm paying for this StreamYard service that is not working up to its full ability. I've published, hold on. See, the problem with this is that Catherine Thornton was ostracized within the media. The very moment that her name was spoken, Christian Porter's like, excuse me, I will sue you and everything will go bad. Even though Catherine Thornton is no longer alive, having the name, media, and picture published for her, it would help to get her justice that her friends have been pushing for. I mean, we do need to thank women like that. They did shine a light on the awful side. I mean, we did have all that talk about what was happening in Parliament with the whole, what they were really doing in the prayer room. I don't know how much I can say before Facebook is going to be like, better take that down. So if you're not sure what I'm talking about, Google prayer room LMP members. Basically, a pretty dirty and gross lot of things that they were doing. But I did say fun half. So we're on to the fun stuff. Getting sacked for calling your boss a wanker is ruled unfair. Yes, that's right. If you call your boss a wanker, it is ruled unfair to sack them. So I picked this story because I thought, what a weird time we are living in. Okay, sniping at your boss behind the back and calling him a wanker under your breath at a Microsoft Teams meeting is not serious enough to warrant immediate dismissal, the Workplace Tribunal has found. Now, this article I'm reading from is the Financial Review. The Fair Work Commission held at the Darwin recruiters gross insubordination and foul language and deliberate agitation of the colleagues of a labour hire firm. The Celotti workforce was unacceptable conduct, but awarded her $6,000 as her sacking was without notice. Now, isn't that funny? There is like this little part where you're rooting for the employee to go on, say it again, say it again. There is that part of you, come on, in the back of your mind. And you know that they didn't just say it because, it was a bad moment. They said it because there was like this thing that was just happening and it was continual. And the day builds up and eventually like, stop being a wanker. And then they're like, no, we should sack you for that because, that's how they see it. Check this out. Okay, or if I can, don't tell the kids I'm touching things because they're going to come in here and they're going to go, hey, you touch things. Okay, the 56-year-old senior recruiter was stood down with pay and then fired after staff complained that she'd begun using obscene language about the general manager, making negative comments about more junior employees. The commission heard that during Darwin's office morning meetings with GM, who appeared remotely by video from Brisbane, the recruiter would sarcastically roll her eyes and allegedly mutter under her breath, "You're an effing wanker." Oh, come on. That's funny. That's funny. Even if you're like, this is funny. At other times, she allegedly described him to staff as a effing misogynist and a disgusting. I'm not gonna. That's the C word. Or would make comments such as, "Look at his pants. A real man would have a bulb." Okay, that's a little bit. Okay, I may have wanted to read the rest of it before I thought it was funny. Okay, the recruiter denied many of the claims, but admitted to calling the GM a misogynist, general manager, a misogynist, and a wanker. However, she argued she had been referring to his alleged conduct at the Christmas party. Why does it always start with a Christmas party? Corporations need to stop having these parties. Nothing good ever comes from having these parties. Where she claimed young female employees reported he got extremely drunk and allegedly put his arms around them and as he creeped them out, they felt uncomfortable around him, which is really, really gross. I had been concerned the way he was looking at the younger female members of the staff in his office prior to the event, she said. She said if she had assured staff that she would protect them and told them, don't worry about it, he is a wanker. But staff complained the recruiter bullied and made negative comments about the junior employees, allegedly calling one a effing idiot and another one a little bitch. At one point, the commission held she burped in the face of a junior staff member laughed, saying, "Yeah, I burped in your face." What kind of employee is this? When GM eventually phoned the recruiter to tell her she was being stood down due to serious concerns about her conduct, she got angry and immediately lauded, telling them this is a C act. Despite the directions to leave the workplace immediately and not to contact the employees, the recruiter re-entered the office to tell her colleagues to enjoy the S-hole. Salotti fired her a week later, and she asked the company to pay 2 weeks um, to respond to the allegations. In her unfair dismissal claim, the recruiter denied engaging in gross insubordination to senior management. Um, or inappropriate, but I'm trying to take it seriously. Look, I know I said I'd have fun with this, but some of this is a little bit cringy even for me. But the Commissioner, Paula Spencer, found that her contact in team meetings was aggressively sought and undermined the authority and management of GM with her Darwin staff. The conduct was divisive and non-consumable, and the professional relationship was expected by other employees. She said the recruiter was also intimidating, passive aggressive to junior employees, and her use of foul language at work was significant and unacceptable. While the assault serious, it provided a valid reason to be dismissed, but did not meet the threshold for serious misconduct. I know I said this would be the fun half, but I remembered I was still got this to go. Just want to check out where we are at, people. Uh, if anyone wants to pop up with me, click on the link below and don't tell the kids. They're going to yell at me. Okay. And you can pop up and discuss things with me as we go along for the fun half. Okay. Okie dokie. Share screen. Okay. Bob Carr has set a warning on why the unvaccinated should pay for their health care. This one is from the Sydney Morning Herald. Bob Carr, the former Labor Premier of New South Wales and Minister of Foreign Affairs in the Gillard government, he keeps close eye on world affairs, also serving as an industry professor in business and climate change. Just one sec. The University of Technology of Sydney. Okay, here's how the conversation. Bob, I find you within hours of heading to the hospital to undergo surgery. Are you okay? Fitz asks Bob Carr. Well, Bob Carr says, I'm okay, but I was bushwalking in the Kangara Boyd National Park, where a lot of loose rocks have been exposed by bushfires. I slipped and tore the rotor cuff off my left shoulder. Fitz, done by your left wing again. You will have to have familiarity with such injuries from your old profession. Fitz, speaking of which, my favourite yarn about you is being spotted reading Jovinsky at a football match, and when you boasted at a New South Wales cabinet meeting the following day, you'd been to the footy and were asked, was the league or union? And you replied, don't ask a trick question. Have you worked out the difference yet? I never knew about that. That's pretty funny. I don't think he Bob Carr under Gestapo torture. I couldn't explain the difference. There you go, Fitzy. All right. Now in the public mind, you'll forever be identified as the New South Wales Premier for a decade, and your as 2 year stint as Foreign Minister in the Gillard government. What would you see your principal legacies in both? Bob Carr in New South Wales, I think it's often overlooked, and it is police reform. We forced the Royal Commission into policing. Our position was a hung parliament, and in government faithfully implemented all recommendations. We went from having our corruption prone force to having a corruption resistant one. I also introduced the world's first carbon trading scheme in January 2001. I'm struck by precedent how precedent we were. Uh, and in foreign policy, I'm proud of what we reinforced and committed in the two-state solution in the Middle East by voting for recognition of Palestine in the UN General Assembly. We showed that Australia could be a creative middle power. Sadly, having one of its own individual personality in a foreign affairs has become completely lost. Somehow, a mad hearsay has taken root in Canberra. Having the alliance with America means we can't have independent judgment, which I will agree with. I mean, have a look at what happened to our independence since conservatives got in. It's largely non existent. We became a tiny chihuahua compared to this strong independent nation on our own. It's not a great look. Okay. Uh, that having an alliance with America means that you can have no independent judgment. You can't even say client state. It goes beyond that. We've got to the status of Puerto Rico or Guam. There's never been an independent squeak out of us. The notion that of us as a confident sovereign power has been lost, and less respect from Washington as a result. We burn our relationship with China to prove fealty to Washington, and America moves and picks up the export market. That's all true. Fitz, how much of a threat is China to Australia? Bob Carr says China's got some of the responses of an adolescent high school on its own testosterone as it achieves the extraordinary goal of rising from poverty to choose the language carefully near peer of the US. Nonetheless, our diplomacy has been thick as a brick. With Defence Minister Dutton running foreign affairs, we've got out in front of every American ally and sometimes America itself, making a flamboyant, hostile statements about China. We've lost export markets and lost the opportunity of dialogue with the Chinese. Fitz goes on to say, on the subject of China, do you regret your links to billionaire property developer Huang Zhengmo via his startup funding of the Australia-China Research Institute in UTS, and has since been alleged he was an agent of Chinese influence? Bob Carr says, I think the think tank in the UTS I headed was jointly launched by the Foreign Minister, Julie Bishop. Oh, of course. And Huang Zhengmo, if there'd been any evidence relevant to the question of Foreign Minister, they have not been on his side. I was there in a new academic role. I was I was fascinated by a tweet you did in November and said we must follow Singapore and legislate no medical or hospital expenses to be reimbursed to people who are not vaccinated without medical justification, which I think we really do need to do. I think we need to tell them that being unvaccinated is going to be a problem for everyone. you ignored the warning and got the disease. You pay for your willful stupidity, not us. Bob Carr. Yes, I speak for two categories. The overstressed frontline workers in our healthcare systems. We should have to look after simpletons who believe the rubbish on the web and ignore medical advice. Second, Australians with manageable conditions like diabetes, asthma, may face a life or death crisis from contacting COVID have rights too. Uh, Peter Fitzsimmons, you will be accused by the nutters of being fascist, pushing medical apartheid, and threatened with facing modern version of Nuremberg trials. This is consistent with someone who's been sweeping into Australia from America extreme right. No. How dangerous is it and what can be done about it? Bob Carr responds, it is very dangerous. America started climate change denialism and it was picked up from American think tanks funded by carbon lobby movements and let loose here by right-wing coalition politicians. We've seen extremists adopting postures and derived by gun-toting QAnon warriors with their animal head dress-up threatening breezy freedoms of Aussie life. Peter Fitzsimmons, what can be done about it, Bob? Bob Carr responds, it needs to be principled on the conservative side. Australian politics, to speak out, has to stand up to it. Malcolm Fraser did on racism, and John Howard did on guns, and we say we want nothing to do with your noxious agenda. Stop this. It is Australia. This is Australia full of funny, friendly people who can boost a civic IQ. Now, this I have to agree with. I didn't think that I agreed with Bob Carr on so much, but it seems like very aligned with him on this particular subject. Um, then Peter Fitzsimmons goes on to say, do you view Scott Morrison as one of those principled people? Bob Carr says that the challenge is in his court. That's actually pretty funny. Okay, Peter Fitzsimmons says, what do you think of Scott Morrison douching Gladys, the standing Warringah, while attacking ICAC? Bob Carr. The Herald editorial said it was consistent with the Herald's support of ICAC since its inception. Gladys faces serious matters, and ICAC must stand unimpeded as an integrity enforcing institution. Peter Fitzsimmons, is that your view that Miss Berejiklian demonstrably lacked integrity? Bob Carr, these arguments are before ICAC. Let's look up the report. Fitzsimmons says, speaking of ICAC, what about the disgraced Labor parliamentarian Eddie O'B? Bob Carr, I sacked O'B from my cabinet because of a single remark he made that indicated that he was at risk of being in an honest government. And this is well in advance of his allegations about O'B to ICAC. In a brief interlude, Helena Carr lovingly interrupts to make some brief arrangements to make sure her husband in the past century will be comfortable while in hospital. Last thing, Fitzsimmons says, every year without fail, you and Nick Grana get ambushed on your doorsteps by media to be called to account of hundreds of thousands of dollars. You and your former general and you two in particular cost us. What are we getting for our money? Bob Carr, you're the limitless charm of one youthfully enthusiastic, now maturely political veterans. We offer continuing commitment to public service, helping the good cause and mentoring lots of promising people on the way, and lots more as well. Fitzsimmons, go get well. Thank you. Good luck with your operation. Okay. Next one is part of the funny hour. I don't know if you've seen it, but Alan Jones got sacked and it's pretty funny. He thinks that he's going to do what we're all doing and just sort of Facebook it, do what we're all doing, which is kind of funny. Um, if anyone wants to pop up, just click the link and I will accept you into the stream. Okay. So, what more can I let you know about? With this stuff with Alan Jones, he's gonna sound like the crazy old man screaming into a void. He went from a legitimate business that he could have had into crazy pants town. That's what happened. But now I'm going to steal a little bit of the fun half's time to talk about Labor's policy of an anti-corruption commission. It'll have the powers to investigate the Great Barrier Reef Foundation, the commuter car park rorts, the urban congestion funds, the Leppington Triangle, the Safer Community Funds, the purchase of water rights, the Paladin contract on Manus Island, the construct contract on Nauru, and the sports rights programs. So I think that that's a lot of good reasons to vote Labor. But if you're not sure after me showing that, wow. Apparently Melbourne had a protest today. I think it was today or yesterday. Craig Kelly was spotted with some nutbag that ruined a murder victims memorial. Eurydice Dixon memorial vandal Andrew Nolt ordered to pay $20,000 when he ruined it. You are the company that you keep, Mr. Kelly. You're a scumbag. And I'm not afraid to call you out as exactly that. But if you're not sure and you're questioning how serious I need to take you, let's think of it like this. Everyone that you have spoken to, from Mike Lindell to Pauline Hanson, you really don't garner the support that you should. You're only getting in amongst crazy people and people that really have no business in our political sphere. But let's just be fundamentally clear about Craig Kelly's position. He's anti-science, anti-vaccine, anti the idea of facts. Now, if that is the guy for you and you think that this is worth voting for, do whatever you will with your ballot, but understand that this guy is nutso. He cannot have a Facebook or a Twitter or any of those things. But yet the LNP saw it fit to give him some sort of social media posting. That's not even like kidding. They really gave him a position to talk about social media, because why not when you're crazy? But speaking of the protests, just so we're really, really clear, loads of people are making a lot of money out of this. The price of freedom, how anti-lockdown protest leaders make money from the movement. Now, this article is from The Age. You can buy caps and t-shirts, pseudo medical COVID treatments, even social media sites, and legal advice. It's all part of the deal when you're marching for freedom. And there is a big grift in it. When 40-year-old Adelaide father of four, Mehmet Erham, missed a COVID test in October last year, he was arrested at his home in the middle of the night by a group of police. Key figures in the freedom movement pricked up their ears. It was a perfect fodder for an anti-government, anti-lockdown content to be shared on social media. The alleged police brutality inflicted over a minor issue relating to a virus they claim is largely harmless, which isn't true. It's done a lot of harm. Ihan, a former tradie who admits he has a checkered past with the law, arrested and charged with 2 counts of breaching a health order, unable to access legal aid due to his ownership of an apartment, even though he was 12 months behind in repayments. He stated an online crowd GoFundMe would help cover his legal costs. But even after he recorded his online interview with Monica Smith, the founder of Australia's largest anti-lockdown group, Regenerate Democracy Australia, Ihan's appeal raised only $1,600. The $7,000 claims that he needed, then another arm of the anti-lockdown movement took up his cause. Someone advised me to get in contact with Rebel News. That's Avi Yemeni, scumbags. That's exactly what he would have done. You get hold of scumbags when you're doing scumbag things, like, I don't know, being a terrible human and getting involved in scumbag activities like not caring about other people, wearing a mask, staying home if you're sick, and getting vaccinated. Typical scumbag stuff. What followed was Ihan feeling worse. Canada-based right-wing commentary website Rebel News, the employer of Australia correspondent Avi Yemeni, former Israel Defense Force member turned activist. In other words, he killed children. That's exactly what Avi Yemeni did. He went there to kill Palestinian children. That's exactly what he did. You cannot call it anything else. The man is a murderer. He's awful. And he also beats women. Required him to sign a contract with them and then asked hundreds of thousands of online supporters to help fund the fight. It was paid into Rebel News to fight the fines. Sorry, that was rude. After the dispute of the legal representation with Rebel News, they cut ties because that's generally how these idiots roll. They don't roll in any legitimate form. They do this grifty thing and then they go, hey, it wasn't me, I don't have any of the money. It's basically how it's done. It's disgusting and you should be ashamed if you are attached to any of it. After the dispute over legal representation, Rebel News cut its ties. They say they exercised their rights under the contract to discontinue the relationship as Ihan had routinely switched lawyers and not acted in good faith. Almost 6 months later, Ihan's case remains on the Rebel News website. He still has no idea how much was raised in the cause, nor where he is now. He's facing a court case of $10,000 in fees and no lawyer, as tens of thousands committed to protests to take to the streets to protest vaccine mandates, COVID-19 restrictions, and Victoria's pandemic. Freedom movement, the rise of the core group of self-styled leaders who have developed large, ardent, growing following online. With this has come an opportunity to make money. Large sums are being donated to crowdfunding for legal cases such as Ihan. Little transparency or scrutiny, much like what's happening in the US. Many of the self-styled leaders solicit donations and merchandise, including Freedom clothing lines, wellness products, sketchy COVID cures like ivermectin and other things. Like, they got no scruples about doing this stuff. Like, let's be fundamentally clear about exactly what they are talking about. If you're in a position of power, like Rebel News was, and raising these ridiculous funds for these causes. Now, there's no doubt that some of them would have felt like these lockdowns were crazy and whatever. For whatever reason, they got involved. This man now has absorbed legal costs in relation to not following the health orders. Avi Yemeni was supposed to be raising money for him, but just like his assault of women, he doesn't take anything seriously. And the moment you call him on it, he becomes like a little pussy bitch and runs. There's no way he's going to make a comment on any of this. His rebel news is not real news, and he just harasses people in the street. And they always have these fake cure ideas. None of them are real. How do I know that? Because no doctor promotes this that's real, that actually understands how the virus is tracked and works. There is a legitimate drug regimen that you can take if you have COVID. But I can assure you, some of the ones these idiots are promoting are not real and have no basis in science. But don't take my word for it. Contact the CDC or the TGA here in Australia. But I digress. There's no credible estimate in Australia about how much money is flowing to protest the movement, but globally numbers are significant. Now, I've had idiots within my own groups, tell me about how they're so anti-lockdown, didn't understand the massive grift that they were partaking in. Now, this is several weeks later as we've kicked the can down the road, and these idiots are still haven't awoken to the idea that maybe, just maybe, they bought into something stupid and someone's making a bucket load of money off their stupidity. A report from Washington, D.C. based Center of Countering Digital Hate, the estimated 58 million that they've gained since this whole anti-vaxxer thing started. See, there you go. They've made 58 million since all of this stuff started. It's a big money maker. They're making money out of killing people. I mean, who in their right mind, other than Avi Yemeni and Craig Kelly and their nutbags, really want to make money out of something like disinformation? And that's all this is. This is disinformation on steroids. It has no basis in science or anything. Making 58 million from this. But they've been able to turn COVID into a really lucrative profit. Deakin University said that they've turned it into like a merchandise thing and gotten a lot of people out to spend real money on this crap. Prior to this, some of them were freelance photographers specializing in wedding and family portraits. Now they've almost made 17,000 followers. An encrypted messaging app on Telegram, favorite meeting place for Australia's Freedumb protests, were recently offered a non-discriminatory Santa photo service for the unvaccinated. In the advertisement, Lawson posted his bank account details and asked for donations. It would go towards his legal fees. He will incur after being charged and convicted for incitement and fined $1,500 after organising gatherings during lockdown. Nowhere is it reported how much he has raised. Because with these cash apps, why do you have to disclose them? I'm a photographer, so it's just me doing my regular job. Very different from other people asking for money for clothing. Oh, yeah, it's just you asking for money for a really, really dodgy way of doing it and saying, I don't care if you're vaxxed or not. I don't care if I make other people sick. Hell, and I don't care if I fund money to help it so you can gather. That's basically what he's telling people. Others look to their followers to buy products and services, widely followed by the conspiracy theorist by David Ongenello and anti-vaccine activist Tom Barrett released a clothing line with t-shirts for toddlers emblazoned with the "Do Not Inject" and "Pure Blood." They sell caps that say "Zombie Slayer" and necklace engraved with "I am essential." The pair did not respond to a request for comment, but on Camillo wrote recently on his Telegram channel that he had started a small business to get the message out there and raise funds for produce and quality content and provide alternative media. You know, I do this for fun. I wouldn't ask you for a cent. And even if I did, it wouldn't be of telling you a lie. That is not a great thing to do. I'm amazed that they still do it. It helps with the rent, he wrote. I'm not asking for donations and handouts. Actually, you are. And you're doing it off a really grifty thing where people can get very sick and some can possibly die. And if the child is small, expose it to a very, very horrible long haul COVID moment, if not kill it. He responded to questions about his merchandise. Regime Regenerate Democracy Australia also sells freedom fighter clothing alongside a raft of other paid services. His business directory invites Australian businesses to pay $3.30 per month or $29 per year to have them named on a database of consumers looking for venues that don't discriminate based on their medical status. If I see an idiot wearing this, I swear to God, if you see anyone wearing this, you don't want them in your world. The COVID scam hat Velcro straps are $35, and the media is a real virus ladies t-shirt is $40. And I mean, they're not even like made well. It's not only are they not made well, but they don't have any basis for needing this. This is a grift, and if you're anyone you know is part of it, stop it. Just stop it. A pandemic is not for you to profit off. Not like this. This is gross and unseemly. It says that they regenerate democracy, social media membership, providing a troll-free censorship social platform which can be purchased for a monthly fee of $5.50 or $44 for an annual membership. Now, I'm hoping most idiots don't figure out how to get a hold of this. This has become important to the organisation after Facebook earlier this month permanently shut down 8 different pages. I'm going to thank Facebook on a one-off. Sure, it won't allow me to share screen with you, but they did do this right. The truth truck that they had, the Regenerate Democracy, travels around Melbourne with large billboards criticising the state government. It has its own fundraiser, which regularly does media blitz fundraisers and raise more than $6,000. And in March, $20,000. And in May, they used to print flyers, placards, stickers, banners, as well as billboards, ads, and social media. We will publish invoices spent on the campaign in the fundraiser page. Says the site to the link involves were broken. Oh, that's funny. The invoice part's broken. Oh, there's nothing to worry about there. I mean, surely the grifters won't mind being broken. People who just handed over their hard-earned money, they're not going to care, are they? Oh, to spend 5 minutes with these people would be oh, that's painful. That's no. Okay, going back into the organisation, and those who donate get daily emails and updates about all of it. Monica Smith's wage is $500 a week. Regenerate Democracy said in a statement, her staff make more money than what she does. She has 12 staff and several contractors. Every cent received is spent on running the organisation. She made an organisation out of this. Dude, she made an organisation out of killing people. This is essentially like suiciding people. Just sort of saying, hey, ignore signs. Like, believe me, like a big kill yourself off kind of thing. It's awful. Smith said that she believed it was not ethical to make money from the freedom movement. There are scams out there making money off vulnerable and desperate people, and I think it's completely wrong. We are not making any profit. We do not fall into that category. I call bullshit. We use revenue to pay for the costs running organisations and lawyers, staff, and websites. If the people of Australia didn't see a need for our services, they wouldn't financially support us. Hey, dumbass, let's be fundamentally clear about what you're doing. You're basically telling people that a free virus vaccine that helps bring down a death toll is bad for you. That's what you're making money off, you scumbag of the earth kind of people. But you don't have to take my word for it. Watch the grift. They're making a lot of money that they shouldn't. Beyond the more established organisation, there's almost prominent figures within the movement, many of whom spread dangerous misinformation about vaccines and have websites and channels on Telegram providing spaces for them to not only spruik their videos, online content, but also ask for donations either by direct bank deposit or PayPal or in cryptocurrency. Fun fact, most of those are not taxable. There is little transparency around how the money is used. Online platforms are also taking a cut, according to the report released last year. The Center for Countering Digital Hate in the US, which has found the anti-vaccination movement following the estimate to be worth more than $1 billion in annual revenue for social media platforms. Generated by advertisers. Our full-time anti-vax campaigners doubled their reach by broadcast research. Research. Where did I get that word from? Broadcasting their message on YouTube channels that peddle conspiracy theories, false cures, wrote by the US group's chief executive Imran Ahmed. In turn, these campaigns lend their brains to audience and activists thriving in an industry of anti-vax entrepreneurs using Facebook as a shop front. Now this is where Facebook becomes the bad guy again. Rue says some anti-vaxxers are making money out of the wellness industry, promoting products seen as alternative to the vaccine. They are also very expensive. Just keep that in mind. Anti-vaccine immune system boosters, hydroxychloroquine, and vitamin C supplements. Vitamin C is actually good for you. Vitamin D as well. So if you are genuinely trying to starve off anything from COVID, I definitely want you to get vitamin C and vitamin D. But the hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin are not part of the drug regimen. Monoclonal antibodies are for if you already have COVID. Keep in mind that no information from me in any website or anywhere else should be considered factual. Even though I do get a lot of information from the science websites. The reason I say this is because I'm not a doctor and I am not someone that you should get your medical advice from. I am not someone like Ben Shapiro or Joe Rogan that will tell you something extraordinary in the face that contradicts everything else in their alternative reality mind game. People exploiting the people's legitimate fear. And the anti-vaxxers are building up to not only economic profit, but are profiting in terms of momentum of their own movement, spreading this disinformation. When Schmidt made headlines for her arrest and indictment charges for several months, she crowdfunded $50,000 for her legal defense over 22 days in prison, despite claiming she had a. I clicked something I should not have. I just want to go up on. Despite claiming she had pro bono lawyers, she was granted bail in the Melbourne Magistrates Court early in September after being charged with 2 counts of incitement over lockdown protests and 3 of breaching the chief health officer's medical directions, but did not leave prison after refusing to sign a bail consent form. I'd imagine it had things on it like, hey, don't get people to gather in the middle of a pandemic. And she was like, no, F that. I want people to die as quickly as possible. The fundraiser has since been taken down, but achieved its versions show that by the late September, it earned more than $300,000. So, idiots handed over their hard-earned cash, and she raised $300,000. But I do have one holdout in my family that is very anti-vax, and I think that they may be funding some of this, which is quite scary. And I talk about this because it's caused me a lot of distress. This is not a normal thing to do, and it's not in my immediate home. It's a sibling, and I'm struggling with that. And he has the money to fund ridiculous things like this. He can do whatever he needs with his money, but it's gross. It's really gross. Which is why I'm on a crusade to prove that these people just stole money. So the money will be used if a QC was needed. Smith challenged the strict bail conditions sought by Victoria Police and won. She told the agent's Sun Herald that Regenerate Democracy regularly communicates with those who contribute to her legal fund and offered refunds to those who donated after they received more money than what they needed. Over 3,000 contributed, as only 20 people offered for the refund, which were processed. A handful of lawyers put themselves forward as advocates of the movements. Some have shared medical misinformation online and fueled anxieties about vaccine mandates. Between them, they have collected more than $1 million in legal funds and challenges which have changed neither the approach or the laws of the state or the federal jurisdiction. 2 lawyers active in the anti-mandate lawsuits, Serena Tapper and Nathan Buckley, have had their licenses to practice law suspended after the state watchdog established that there were lines between blurred in legal advocacy and activism. Oh, geez, it's a gigantic Trump knobhead. Oh, it's the Nathan Buckley. Oh, it's now sitting into my brain. I can't unsee that. No, there's just Buckley, the principal of New South Wales GMB Law. Oh, look, I really, really need to scroll down. His face needs to be gone. More than 575,000 in crowdfunding to challenge the various COVID-19 public health orders, which none of work. None of it. When his client lost the challenge in New South Wales health orders, which required vaccination against COVID-19, they went against New South Wales. Oh, I thought New South Wales was their buddy. Apparently not. He made $575,000, but I mean, for a grift like that, you're making a bit of money. Buckley has filed proceedings against the New South Wales Law Society and challenging the suspension of his practicing certificate. He declined for comment. Because if he comments between now and this appeal, he can essentially lose his appeal. It is not smart. It's actually smart that he does not comment at all. But let me touch on this a minute. $575,000. If he continues to do this on any level, because he can't practice law right now. If he continues to do it like this, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. In April, Tefreda, who filed a class action lawsuit over the mandatory coronavirus lockdown of 9 public housing towers in Melbourne, had her license cancelled by Victoria Legal Service. Clap, clap. That's amazing. I'm glad that these grifters are like, no. You weren't really helping people. What you were doing was giving them a fear campaign based in disinformation in a low socioeconomic area where the predominant moment was desperation. And you told them lies. And you were in a position of power. And that power was abused. And you should not have that kind of power. I'm very anti groups like this misrepresenting what they really are. Did not specify why her law certificate was revoked. Family court law of law sent a letter to Victorian Watchdog in January about her conduct in a family case where a judge took the unusual step of restraining her from representing her own client. And I mean, just think about that for a moment, what she'd done, where a judge is like, you're such bad faith that you're not even acting in the best interests of your own client. We'll keep calling them out until there's a revolution in the street, she said. We need to shed blood for peace. No. She's calling for violence. Dude, violence. Nah. You're not American. You can't play this lingo with us here. We're not going to. No. We shouldn't accept her in as a whole. Court documents showed Tefreda, who is involved with a lobby group for people with safe vaccinations, raised more than $650,000. Makes her a fair bit of money. National class action at times purported to represent people affected by them in any form of discrimination. Let's have a look at where we are. Just on the comment section. If you want to leave a comment or anything like that, we still have a few minutes to do that. We'll keep calling them. Okay, court documents. Hold on. She declined to answer detailed questions, saying, I have crowdfunded or what. She declined to answer detailed questions, saying, I have never crowdfunded or fundraised. Everything was in a trust account that was stolen by the government. Every I was dotted and every T was crossed. And typical grifter, make it someone else's fault when money goes missing. Monash Law School Associate Dean Luke Beck. The grifter allegedly keeps going and claiming that they're the victim in all of this because not the people that they ripped off. No. Allegedly, it's the government. Idiots. Plays a legitimate role in public interest litigation such as climate change, class action, and it was important to access justice legal mechanisms given the very high costs of court cases. Anti-vaxxers genuinely believed they're doing in the public interest. He says, adding that we should not ban crowdfunding just for challenges that you politically disagree with. Yeah, but no, this isn't a political thing. This is something my worst. This is like public health. That's not political. Even the Liberals agree that this has to be helped with vaccination is our only way. Like, no, it's not political. What is wrong with you? The only way it's political if you make it political, and it's not political as a nature. However, it notes that under the law, money donated for a particular purpose can only be used for that purpose. So people donating money need to be clear about whether they're giving money for a particular purpose or they're just handing out money as a gift for people to do what they want with it. And I can bet you they called it a gift. Lawyers are also bound by the rules to say that they should only bring cases to court which have reasonable prospect of success. Cases which ask for the courts to intercept are in a law that has already been ruled upon, such as the constitutionality of vaccine mandates, may breach that. Of course it does. Victorian Legal Service Board Commissioner Fiona Cleary says Victorian lawyers should think carefully about publicly encouraging the community to pursue cases or actions that do not have their merit or are unlikely to succeed in court. A balance needs to be struck with ensuring matters is run with the best interests of the clients. If a case has very little chance of success, it needs to be disclosed before you take it on. Last week, the Supreme Court tossed out both cases in the actions brought on behalf of Victorian businesses and workers. Do not hand over your money to these gigantic grifters. Despite the passage of the Victorian government's pandemic bill, the so-called freedom movement is not losing steam. Conversations in its channel shifted to vaccines of children. They are coming for the kids because, of course, they need a new scare point. One prominent leader said this week that the war on children is here because this is how conservatives live their life. It's like this constant hyperbolic fear everything. Anything that good happens in your circles, you must fear it because someone on the left said, hey, it's probably good to have, I don't know, like equal pay and women's rights and normal things, you know. They live in constant fear. Look at the US Army this. While they're handing out guns on the right wing, the left wing is handing out books. We have Greta Thunberg with a megaphone, and we have the right gunning down people at BLM protests, and the right heavily wanting to take on Mr. Rittenhouse now and fight for him to be an intern at their workplaces. Yeah, because his claim to fame is he murdered people that he disagreed with. That's where Mr. Rittenhouse got famous. So they live in this really weird echo chamber of fear. They do not have anything of substance, and anything that they do come across is largely wrong. But don't take my word for it. Listen to theirs. Their language is hyperbolic. It has no basis in facts. Some of Australia's prominent freedom activists plan to stand for the next election alongside former Liberal candidate Craig Kelly. Clive Palmer's United, which would give them access to virtually bottomless election. Last election, Palmer donated more than $80 million to his party in a bid for a federal parliament seat. Money splashed in the advertising campaigns across newspapers, including The Age, Herald Sun, and Billboard of Media. The collection of people from many groups. See now, if these media outlets want to be legitimate in what they're doing, they should not take his money. They should know that what he's doing is wrong, and YouTube and any other organization such as Facebook, The Age, the Herald Sun, and any other Murdoch holding should ultimately be held to a higher standard. And said, Mr. Palmer, No, your money's no good here. You're going to kill people. And that's really where corporations have become such an awful moment for this, because we wouldn't know about it if they weren't promoting this on some billboards and ad buys from legitimate businesses. And they shouldn't be. No billboard company should be going, no, 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 Mr. Palmer, I want your money. They should have some moral compass, and they just don't. But in saying that, I think I don't think I know it's time, and that's our time for this week in politics, week 8. And I want to say that it has been lovely to spend my evening with you talking about things that impact your world as we lead up to the federal election. I want you to know that this is going to be a really, really over the top campaign. So do not get too caught up in the semantics of what they're about to pull. Please like and subscribe, leave a comment, and all conversations that we have here, I want you to know that it matters a lot to me and everyone that partakes in this group conversation. I want to hear from you, so just leave comments. Let me know where we're at, and let me know what you think this federal election will turn into. Catch me next week, 6 p.m. New South Wales, 7 p.m. New South Wales time. I will see you next Sunday. Thank you. Bye.